got another tutorial video for you today. I know a lot of you have really been enjoying them. So this one, instead of just showing you like one card, I'm going to actually show you how to make 3 different cards, because I thought it would be quite nice to show you 3 different ways of using patterned papers to create different kind of background sort of elements for your cards. And this is actually using the special showcase from the Cyber Week 2022 from Tonic, and this is their CRaFTi collection. So it's actually very similar to what you would get with one of Tonic's magazines, but without the magazine. So it's like all of the sort of freebie elements from one of their magazines. So you're getting 6 different patterned papers that are all double-sided, and you're getting 2 sheets of each of them. Plus there's a gorgeous stencil, which I haven't had a chance to use yet. You've also got a lovely A6 stamp set, which has loads of gorgeous sewing kind of related sentiments, some other little generic kind of sentiments, these sort of like seal elements, bits and pieces to coordinate with the die set. And then you've also got this enormous A4 die set in here as well, and all of it comes with the magnetic sheet and in one of Tonic's large die storage folders with the poppers on, so you can put it straight into your ring binders if you have those. But it's a fantastic special showcase, so it's not like one of their normal showcases. It's a super duper one with everything you need to create all your different projects, and I'm sure everybody on the design team has been given a different task for different kind of projects to make with it. And the actual purpose of this die set is to create a 3-dimensional cotton reel. So I will have my usual up-close video showing you exactly what this is meant to make and what the 3-dimensional cotton reel actually looks like as well. I'm not sure if I'll do a construction in that video. I do think it's pretty simple to put together. I haven't tried yet, but I do think it is a simple kind of one to put together, so I might leave one unfinished so that I can show you. But that is what I'm using for this tutorial. But it is basically just sort of me showing you different ways of using your patterned papers and possibly incorporating some of the dies from that showcase or other ones from your stash as well. Don't feel like it has to be don't feel like you have to have that special showcase to be able to do these cards. I just wanted to be able to show you some extra kind of ways of using your patterned papers. You could easily use one of these ideas and turn it into a Christmas card, a New Year's card, a thank you card, a birthday card. Use bright bold colours, use monochrome colours. It doesn't have to be anything similar to this. They're just sort of ideas for you to use. Although I have used the dies from the showcase to be able to do this. So if you do get the showcase, you can make these straight away, because other than an ink pad, I think, and a few buttons, ink pad, buttons, and then the usual things, you know, like adhesive and stuff. Other than that, I've not used anything other than what is in that special showcase. So, first card we're going to start with, let's go with the simplest looking one. So we'll go with this card first, and the different sort of element that requires the showcase for this one is I've used the patterned papers, but I've actually used 2 of these debossing dies that you get in the die set to add some extra detail into the background. So I'm going to recreate that and show you exactly how I get it in the perfect positions for the pieces of patterned paper that I've already cut. And for cutting your pieces of patterned paper as well, you know, in my previous tutorial video, I think it was possibly the 3rd one, where I showed you how to create a wonky background from all of your scrap pieces. Those ones, because it's sort of like wonky, I cut them with my scissors. But for this one, because I wanted them to be able to butt up against each other and have relatively even white spaces between the pieces, I used my trimmer to cut them. And basically you can see there's already a diagonal here from the piece that I cut off. So you literally just use your trimmer, I think you can kind of see that from up there, and just cut it at a wonky angle. But because you're using your trimmer, you know that all of the pieces are going to have that straight edge that will butt up against each other, and you can just twist them to whatever angle that you've kind of added them. I'll kind of show that in a second, but I just wanted to show you exactly how I had cut them out. So I've got all of the pieces that we need here, other than doing the die cutting into the back panel, but we will do that in 1 second. So I've got 2 of these pieces here, which I think are supposed to create part of the cotton reel that's this die set is supposed to create, but I thought they look like perfect little decorative elements, so I've cut 2 of them to do that. Then I've also cut a circle from vellum, and again I think this is the top of the cotton reel, but I've used the lighter weight vellum from Tonic, so the pure white one, which is 100 GSM, and then I've taken the little leaf die that's in the die set, cut it 7 times and made a little ring around there, and then I've also stamped out the little flower from the stamp set 5 times. I'll show you how I'm going to cut that one out. There isn't a coordinating die, I'm literally just going to fussy cut it out. And then I've also used the little banner die and one of the stamps from the stamp set to create my little sentiment on there as well. So those are all of the extra pieces that we're going to be using. But first of all, we need to get our background going. So to make sure I can place these 2 dies, which are the 2 dies from the die set that give you this sort of like cut in or debossed kind of detail into the card, to make sure we get them in the position that we want them, you want to take all of your scrap pieces, and I have just picked my favourite side of each of the patterned papers, so I've got 6 different patterns here, and we can move these around. We might have to trim some if we want to less of a pattern showing. Actually, that one that I just cut, we might want to switch that out for that pink one to give us a little bit of extra room. And that should make it, yeah, that works really nicely. That one's a little bit too wide for the kind of design we're going for. So, first of all, I've put the green spotty one down. Let me zoom you in a little bit closer. So I've put the green spotty one down, and then I want this kind of little like starburst pattern to go in there. So I'm going to see how close that is to the edge. I want it to be relatively close to the edge, and then I'm going to place this die. And I want this to be maybe slightly more towards the top. It's not going to go the full length of the card, but I don't think you tend to really notice that. On the other one, I've actually kind of hidden that fact, and you hide it at the top, just not at the bottom on this piece. But I've put tiny little bits of tape on the top and bottom of that die, so we can move that piece of patterned paper out of the way and tape that onto our card. And you can see the angle that it's at, because that works with the angle that we have cut that piece of paper at. Then the pattern is pretty much edge to edge on that metal, so we can line up where we want the next piece to be, and then the next piece as well, and the next piece as well. This doesn't have to be exactly where you put them, you're kind of just eyeballing it at this point. And then this side, we want to make sure we're still going to get this spotty pattern on there, as well as the pink piece, but we also want this design to go in here as well, which has kind of got like swirly, flourishy things and hearts on it. So we're going to place that here. I think that's about where I want it to be. And then we can just move those patterned papers out of the way again, and I've stuck it to that patterned paper. We move it out of the way and then press our tape down. So now we want to keep those in the right order. I mean, I know the order because I've already got one made, but before, when I was making the first one, I was making sure I kept them in the order that I wanted them. Then we're just going to run this through our tangerine. Okay, so we've got those 2 dies cut into our backing piece now. So we can take the dies off and put those over there so that we don't lose them. And now we've got our 2 randomly debossed pieces in there, and you can see how lovely and deep that goes. You can actually see it sort of appearing on the back, and this is the reason why I've only done one of each pattern on here. You could definitely do this between each of the designs if you wanted to. However, you are going to flatten the previous ones that you've done. You know, if you put the dies back on and you run it through again, you're going to slightly flatten what you've already created. So I wanted to keep it really nice and prominent, which is why I've only used each pattern once on here. Then I want to take my glue. I can actually use my big bottle of glue. And we just want to add a little bit of glue on the back of all of these pieces of patterned paper so that we can position them where we want them on our background. So we can go this one, we want to line it up against the edge of that design that we've cut into it, and that goes perfectly because we already sort of planned it out before we started. Then I want the spotty piece. And you can pick whichever side of the patterned paper that you want. That flowery one is really pretty. I just felt like it was too bold compared to the other designs that I had picked. They're all of these are kind of very monochrome, and that one sort of had all of the colours in it, but you can definitely use that if you want to. You could even use multiple strips of the same colour if you wanted to, and just sort of like move them apart to make a different sort of design. Then we're going to go with this blue one. Just a bit of glue all over the back of it. Then we want to go with the green flowers, and this one is going to go up against that design that we cut in or debossed in there. Then we've got our pink gingham piece, which we're going to put in next to this here. This one is only just long enough because it's a, we only just cut this one. It's a sort of a cut from a smaller piece of the patterned paper than I had originally cut them from. But that should just about work to go on there. And then we're going to finish off with the spotty blue piece of paper, just to get a little sliver on the edge of the card and bring that final extra blue piece in. I kind of did 2 greens, 2 pinks, 2 blues, and I used the same side of all of the patterned papers for all of these cards as well. So that is our actual background done. Then when you're coming to put your design elements on here, so all of these little bits that we've already cut out and I showed you earlier, it is much easier if you already cut off all of these excess pieces, because you can visually see exactly where the edge of your card is going to be. So you know if you're placing something on there that you're not suddenly going to lose a piece that you thought was going to be on your card because it was actually stuck to a piece of the patterned paper that was overhanging and you were going to trim off later. So I always prefer to kind of trim off these pieces first before I add all of my decorative elements on. And you can do this with a guillotine as well. You don't have to use your scissors. If you don't like cutting sort of long straight pieces, you can definitely use your guillotine to do that. So now we've got our main patterned piece and you've got those beautiful designs hidden within there as well. We can add on our decorative elements. So this one I'm going to have coming in from the corner, and if we've put it up here, it kind of hides that there's no pattern just there. It sort of disguises that there's no pattern. So we're going to put that one in like so. And I'm going to go back to the fine tip nozzle so that we can be more accurate with where we're placing our glue. And I find if you go round both of the large sort of circumferences of that circle piece and then just add a couple of dots on some of those little skinny bits in between, just to help hold it down and make it less likely for it to get caught on something when you're pulling it in and out of the envelope as well. So we can just place that down into position, and then the second one that I have cut, we're just going to snip it in half because it saves you having to use an extra die cut then, and we're going to put one half down here and then we're going to put the other half up here. But to make it look more like 3 elements, we're going to actually move one to be like slightly less and then one to be slightly more, so it kind of looks like there's 3 elements and you haven't just used a half and a quarter and a quarter to kind of do it. You sort of shift it a little bit. So this one we're going to go here because it hides that no bit of pattern there. So we can just again go around the 2 sort of circumference pieces of this and then a few little dots on a couple of the interior little bits. And then we can place that down there. And then the top one we're just sort of bringing in slightly further just to make it look like a bigger sort of circle. But again, we're kind of like disguising the fact that there's no pattern just there. It doesn't really matter, but I just felt like as we had these elements to go on top, we might as well try and disguise where there's no pattern from the little debossing dies. So we can put this one here. Then again, you want to trim off these pieces because it sort of shows your eye exactly where everything is going to end on your card and what you've actually got onto your card as well. And then we're going to go with our main focal sort of decoration. So on this one, I've done what I said earlier. I've put 7 of those little leaves in a circle. They're like just little tiny leaves like this. I just cut 7 of them, well 8 because I had one left over, and then just put them in a little ring around there. And we're going to put that sort of more centrally on the card, but we want to be able to adhere this down, and we could just go tiny little dobs around the leaf portions underneath them to hide the glue. But because we know we're going to add a sentiment on there, we might as well put the sentiment on top of the vellum now, and we can actually use behind the sentiment as an extra place to add some adhesive as well. So we're going to get a little sliver of foam tape to go behind the little tiny sentiment. And then we can place this on. I quite like to do things a little bit off centre. So the vellum circle is centre, but I'm not going to put the sentiment like central right in the centre. I'm going to put it slightly further towards the top, and I'm going to actually make it so it's off centre in the circle. I just find that more pleasing to my eye, but if you prefer everything to be central, then put it central as well. It will look fine either way. It just kind of depends what your eye really likes. Then we're going to go in with these little flowers. I do still need to cut one out, but we can put 4 of them on for now. So again, we're going to place some of these onto the vellum. I know we could already put adhesive behind the little leafy portions, but if we add these little flowers on now as well, we can also hide extra adhesive behind those too. And then we're going to put one more. Sort of, I think we're going to have that about there, so we'll put another one up here, and then the final one that I need to cut out still, I'm literally just going to fussy cut it. It doesn't matter how neat this is, and it is pretty simple to cut out. It's not too much of a difficult shape. But if you didn't want to cut these out, there are actually some little flower dies in the die set, so you could eliminate the stamping element and literally just use some die cut flowers as well. So whatever your preference is, you can change that out, or if you're doing a completely different card, you can just focus on what I've done on the background, or use like sequins or something, or Nuvo drops. So that is the main sort of element there, and then we're just going to stick this down. So now we have more areas to apply our adhesive on the back of it. So we're just going to go with the glue again, and we're going to put it behind that sentiment. Bits, you can do bigger blobs behind the flowers that are on there, and then just little blobs behind the sort of leafy portions on there. And then we can just put that into position, and we have our finished card with the first kind of background of using some patterned papers. So this could be a colour trend for those patterned papers. It can be just going through your scrap box and using up some bits and pieces. It could be leftover wrapping paper that you've saved from presents. It can be all sorts of different bits and pieces, but it's just an idea of how you can do a slightly different scrap background as well. So that's the first card. Then the second card, let's go with this one. So this is using a lot more of the elements from the actual die set, going with the sew or the sewn kind of theme with the sewing elements. You've got the almost like embroidery floss down here, but because I was trying to stay within all of the elements that are included in this special showcase, instead of bringing in some twine, which I don't actually have any pastel colours of, I decided to just use thin strips of the patterned paper. So I'm going to put one of these together for you as well. And then in the background, I've actually used the paper distresser that Tonic and Holtz do. I think maybe the new one is black actually, but I still have the red one. And you can just sort of shred up the edge of your pieces of patterned paper. So I've got all of the pieces that I'm going to need here, and this is one of the portions. I can show you on the opposite side of this, but that is how it shreds up the paper. So you literally just hold the paper. I tend to go like this to try and keep it sturdy, and then you just put it in any of these ones. They do get a little bit clogged up with paper, so as you're working on a project, you can switch around to a different notch in there if you want to, and then I literally just roughed up the edge of it. And these pieces, you could definitely just have cut a random rectangle of cardstock, but I did actually use the die that is in the set that I think is supposed to decorate maybe like the stem of the spool of the cotton reel. So this is actually, they're all die cut. I die cut all of the rectangles, and then for these ones I've just roughed up the edge of one of them. I didn't need to do this one because this is going to be the backing piece. It's going to be the last piece that's there, so all of the other ones are going to layer on top of that, and I'll show you that when we come to put the background together. And I've also actually cut out one of these pieces, which is the sort of lacy design, like a border die in the die set, which we're going to layer on top of. I decided to layer it on top of this colour, and the reason why is because this one is green on green. All of the others have white in them, and because I've cut the die cut from white, I felt like the design would get slightly lost a little bit. So because this one is green on green, it's slightly more of a solid back, so that's why I've decided to put the decorative detail onto that piece. But we'll come to that in a second and layer up that background. But first of all, let's talk about the apertures that I've cut. So if you are using the showcase and you want to do the apertures, this is the largest circle die and the smaller circle die, which I think are supposed to make the top and bottom of the cotton reel. And then this one is the button. So you actually get lots of different button dies, but there's just a circular button, and so I use the circular button. So then I use this plus another one that I've cut to add as extra embellishments on the card as well, to sort of tie it all together. So let's go with the cotton reel first. Let's show you how I made these cotton reels look like they kind of had thread on them. So all I've done is taken some of that same blue patterned paper. I used the sort of plaid design, and I just cut 3 skinny strips of this, just using my guillotine, just like nudging it along a little bit. They don't have to be even. You can see they're not even. This one's wider, but just skinny little strips of patterned paper. Or if you have a coordinating colour of twine, you can definitely use that, or thread or embroidery floss or something. But I wanted to use what we had in the showcase. So I'm putting a piece of tissue tape on the back of the cotton reel. Then I'm going to take the first piece of this and I'm going to line it up just below those little stitch lines and fold it round the back, and then you're literally just going to pull it round. You can twist it at different angles, you can keep it straight if you want to, however you want to do it. And you can just sort of bring the piece of paper all the way around. Sometimes, depending on the length of piece that you've cut, you can have an extra bit and like tuck it underneath there. So I've tucked that piece in. Then, to secure that in place and to help the next piece stick, we'll put another bit of tape on there. And I have been using 3 pieces for each of my cotton reels, and this is this is only 18 centimetres long, so this is slightly shorter than the width of A4, but if you cut them from the width of A4, then you'll definitely have enough with 3 of them. Then this time I'm going to start from the other end to try and secure that little tab down and to make a straight end again on this end like we started with the other end. And then we're literally just going to wrap, but this time we're wrapping and trying to go between where we missed last time. So we can just go like that, and this one we'll just end it off on the back and trim off the last little piece. Then, to secure that in place and allow the next one to stick, we'll put another little bit of tape on there, and then the final one, you kind of sort of look at it, see where there are any gaps. So I'm feeling like the biggest gap is probably here, so I'm going to put that over there, stick it round the back, and then this time I did quite a good job of covering it just with the 2 strips, so we can just literally wind this wherever we want to wind it really, and then trim off the back excess piece, and then you just repeat that with whatever other colours you want to use, and you've got your 3 little spools of thread then. So we've got those ready. Then let's come back to the background. So I already know the order that I want all of my pieces of paper to be in because I've already created one of these. But basically what you want to do is, because I've used 6 different pieces of paper, but they're kind of like 2 in each sort of colour scheme, I've kind of gone pink, green, blue as my little colour combination. So I'm going to line these up with the jagged edge that we've used the paper distresser on all together, so it kind of looks like frayed fabric in a haberdashery, you know, you can kind of see it all on a shelf. Then this one we're going to place just there, and then we're going to bring in the final blue one, which I'm going to slightly overlap onto that die cut design. And because we've cut these with the rectangle, if I zoom out a little bit, you can see that they're all perfectly aligning up and down because we cut them all with the same sized rectangle, but you can definitely just have used your paper trimmer to cut them as well. And then you want to bring in your aperture piece and check that you think this is going to work nicely. So I like the idea of seeing at least 2 colours in this small hole up here, and then obviously we want to show off this lace. We don't want to place it over here and then have a bare spot. We want to make sure we can see that lacy kind of portion, and I quite like the idea of seeing a tiny bit of the blue down here as well. So I think I want to place mine probably about there. So all of these papers are spaced out quite nicely. I might maybe want to nudge that one in a little bit just so that you can still see that last pink spotty one when we put it all together. So if we go more like that perhaps. Yeah, there we go. I think that gives a good kind of layout of the different colours. So once we've decided that, I was just using some of my double-sided tape. So you're going to gently pick off the first colour, which is the blue one, put your double-sided tape up against the edge that we've used the paper distresser on, and then bring it back onto here and place it on the white piece where you want it to be, press it into place, then take this one off and use another bit of tape behind here and take the backing off of that piece, and then place this back onto the green one where we want it to be. Sort of eyeballing, but making sure your rectangles are still nicely lined up, because we know that fits behind all of the apertures. And then you can just keep going down all of the different colours of your patterned paper and just moving along, adding a bit more tape and adding this to the next one. I found that this was the easiest way to do it. I mean, if you wanted to, you could possibly put some of your removable tape across all of the pieces and you know, like add wet glue in between the layers or something if you'd rather, but I just found this was the easiest way, because whenever I have tried to put removable tape across stuff, it always sticks, and then you end up ripping something and having to like start again or put something on it to kind of cover it up. So I just found that this was the easiest way for me to kind of do this. Oh, I've run out of tape. Okay, so we can line the next one up. I'll use my narrow tape for the next one because I need to get a new roll of the wider one. And then we can just put this one on. You can see how easy this is, and you can do this with all sorts of different pattern papers that you have, or your specialty cardstocks as well. Now this one, it doesn't matter how much of that is showing. We might as well just make it so more of it is showing, just in case, you know, in case we've stuck anything too close together and we haven't got enough paper to fill in all of our apertures. So we might as well just stick that a little bit further out, and then you actually have more of a wiggle room for moving this across. So then we can make sure we know where we want this to go again. And I think I do, oh actually I think I might have tipped it on my previous one, so I still got like almost 3 colours showing there, but still got the blue over here. So now we know that that's going to fit perfectly. I want to raise this up on 3D foam, so I'm using my 1mm depth 3D foam, just because I like that subtle sort of height that it gives, but you can use your 2mm or 3mm, whatever you prefer, as your height of 3D foam. And I'm putting a decent amount on, but I'm not going to go too close to any of these elements. Actually, I'm not actually tucking anything underneath them, but if you were thinking about tucking things underneath any of these, it's a good idea to not go too close to them, just so that you still have the possibility of tucking them underneath if you want to. Any like a sentiment or a small little piece you've die cut or you stamped and cut out perhaps as well. This is kind of reminding me, this kind of using 3 circles to make an aperture is reminding me of the Fin-Tastic Mermaid stamp club, because that already had a die in there that would be perfect for this kind of card. So if you have that, you could recreate this kind of a card using that die, and you just have a few more apertures on there as well. And you could also do it more for like a DL card if you wanted to. So now we've got our tape on the back of there, or our 3D foam. We can peel this off, and then we'll just be able to place this over the top of our sort of custom patterned paper background that we've made, that kind of gives it more of a haberdashery kind of feel with that distressed sort of edge to it, because it looks like frayed fabric then. But it gives a different look to the first card that we made, because the first card, all of the pieces are separate, whereas this one, they're all overlapping over the top of each other. So it just gives a slightly different look, and we can angle this to how we want it to be. So we're going to press down like that, because we've got that in the perfect position, and then we can just undercut. So you're literally just holding your scissors at more of an angle, rather than going up and down. You hold them at more of an angle, and then you can undercut underneath your main front panel. It just stops you from cutting into your front panel basically. You can just sort of cut underneath it rather than risking going off at a funny angle and cutting into it. So now we've got all of that done, we've got all of our final pieces already ready to stick onto here. I've done the little sentiment again cut out from the little banner. I've got 3 real buttons and I've got 2 die cut buttons. I've also taken the sewn with love little sentiment and I've stacked 3 of them together to give a different sort of dimension to it, and then I've got the 3 little cotton reels that I showed you how to do earlier. So first of all, I think I put the cotton reels on, and I did actually group them together on my mat, but now I know where they're going to go. We could definitely just place them all onto here, but the actual way that I did this, if you're sort of placing elements on and you're not 100% sure if you want them, you know how you want them clustered, but you're not 100% sure where you want them on the card, it's quite nice to cluster them off the card. So I've still got a little bit of double-sided on the back of here from where we were wrapping the paper round. So I'm going to place them where I want them and press as hard as I can to get that tape to hold on to the other one. Sometimes you have to add a little bit more tape, but with these ones I found that there was just enough left on there, and then we can just press that final one on there, and now they're all holding together as a little cluster, and then we can decide how we're going to stick that down. And I did actually use 3D foam on mine, so I'm going to put a piece of the 1mm on that green one because it's in the foreground, so there's more height between the background and that green one, and then for the rest of it we're just going to add another piece of the 1mm over the top, and that will make that piece 2mm just there. Then we can pick that off and then place this, so you can actually decide where you wanted to put it on here. I felt like down here gave it a nice balance because you're putting more of the weight to the bottom of the card. So you can press that on. Then for little extra accents, I wanted to add the die cuts and the real buttons. So down in this corner, I tucked a die cut button under there, and then I also added on a real button as well. Now you could definitely use your hot glue if you'd rather for your real buttons, but I did find that this glue did hold it enough. So we're just going to place that one there. Then I want to do another die cut button over here. I quite like doing things in 5s, which is why I had 2 die cut buttons and 3 real buttons. So it made my 5 little embellishments. And I'll put that one there, and then this one up here to kind of balance it. Then I've also got this sewn with love. Now originally I was going to have that as the main sentiment, and I was going to put it on one of the cotton reels or the little floss pieces, but I felt like it took up too much space on there. So in the end I still wanted to add it to the card, so I just put it over here in the aperture, so it's kind of just like a hidden little extra element that you can see. You could definitely cut this from another colour if you wanted it to be more prominent though, but I quite like it just being sort of hidden in there, but it's an extra little element. And then for the main sentiment I used the Love You So Much little sentiment, and I cut it out with the banner on this one. And then I just want to add this on with a little bit of foam tape, again the 1mm stuff, and then I want to add this so it overlaps this main aperture, and if I've put foam tape here, there is extra depth there from where I put foam tape on the backing piece, so I want to put another little bit of foam tape under here, and sometimes it is easier to put it onto your card where you want your sentiment to be, and then you can take off the main bit from your sentiment and line it up over the top of that, and then once you've got it in the right position you can press that down. So that is our second card. And then the third and final card to sort of show you another way of using patterned papers to create really simple kind of designs is this one, which I'll show you the finished one of. We've got a little bit of die cutting to do on this one, but this is basically just using the large and the small circle to cut out different patterns. So again, I've stuck with the same 6 patterns, and I've cut a big and a small of each of those designs. And I've got them there ready. I've still got one left to do with the paper distresser. So with a circle, I just try to sort of hold near the edge. I'm holding above and below near the edge, and sometimes I put my pointer finger there as well, just to kind of hold it steady, and then you can actually just go backwards and forwards a couple of times, move around the circle, and you get that lovely frayed look on here. It just gives a really lovely look, and it really looks like it's like a frayed circle of fabric as well. And it doesn't matter if you rip it or if you distress it a little bit more in one place than another, because I think it still all adds to that kind of sewn or frayed fabric kind of a look. So for the die cut elements on this one, I decided that I wanted the green to be my focal element, but because I had used 2 circles and each colour had like 2 pieces of it, I knew I was going to end up with an even number of the same colour. So I've got 2 large green circles and 2 small green circles, but I quite like odd numbers. So for my focal green portion, I kind of wanted 5 little green portions. So I decided to take the 2 sort of more solid pattern greens, because I know that die cutting, whether out of them or putting a white die cut on top of them, would look more prominent really. It would show up more because this is green on green pattern. So I picked out those 2, and then I went back to the die set and I decided on taking the intricate detail that goes on the top of the cotton reel, and I'm going to die cut that into my frayed edged one. So even though I have frayed the edge of that one, you can still die cut into it, and I think it gives a really cool effect. But you definitely want to fray the edge first and then die cut, otherwise it would be far too delicate to be able to fray that edge. And when we have cut this out, to go behind it, I've also cut that same size circle from vellum as well, because I felt like it just helped mute the background a tiny little bit behind it and helped the pattern kind of show out a little bit more. And then for the small circle, there's a little heart die in the set, so I'm just going to put the heart die in the centre of the small circle, because this is now my focal piece where the sentiments will go, but this one allows me to get that 5th element, so I can have a circle with a heart missing, but I can also use the heart as well, and then that gives me the 5 green elements for my project. So I'll just cut these off camera. Okay, so we've got our 2 die cut pieces here now, and we've got our extra little heart piece there. So if we carefully take the dies off, we've got our beautiful decorative pattern. You can see how lovely that looks with that distressed edge, but there's no way you could distress that edge afterwards. You've got to do it beforehand. And then we've got our vellum piece to go behind it as well. Okay, so now we've got everything cut and ready, other than our sentiments, which we'll do right at the end because that'll finish off the card. We've got to decide where we want all of these patterned pieces to be, and also tip off that excess paper from the distressing. But I know I'm following this one, so I already have my sort of pattern and layout of pieces there. But you can kind of just do this really organically and just sort of lay them down. I kind of went with the big ones first, so I put this large one up here, and then I kind of overlapped in different areas with the different designs. So I will give you a tip for adhering these down as well, but you can literally just place them all on and overlap where you want to hide a gap, or leave gaps where you want them to be as well, and just add all of your different elements on here. And we don't have to worry too much about that central section, because that's where our main green one is going to go. And also, when I was sticking these down, I had finished sort of like cutting off all of the edge pieces, and then I felt like, oh, this pink is really prominent, and I wanted a 3rd bit of the pink. So luckily, I had, still had the little scraps next to me, so I just took one of those little scraps, I think it was that tiny piece there, that had come off the edge of the card, and I just stuck it up there to give me my 3rd pink element. So we can definitely do that as well when we're putting these together. Then once you've decided on your layout, I'm following my card so I don't need to take a photo of it, but once you have your layout as you want it, take a photo and have it on your phone next to you, and then go round like this. So say to yourself, okay, these elements are on the top layer, so these 2 are both separate and these 2 are both separate, so they're on the first top layer. Then if you look at this, these 2 are on the next layer. Then if I look at this one is on the next layer, then it's this one, and then those 2 are both in the background. So you can kind of place your elements on your mat, move them out of the way so you know which ones are going to be stuck on first, and then that can actually make you think of if you want to add them with wet glue, or if you want to add them with a little bit of 3D foam as well. So we're going to place that one there and this one down here. Then I'm going to still go with the flat glue, because actually doing that distressed edge, you can see it actually like curls up the edge of your paper, so it gives it a little bit of dimension already, so you don't need as much foam tape as you might normally use. So it's quite a good sort of flat card to make as well. So then we've put that one down, which was our next layer down, and actually we need to go with this. No, we don't. We need to go with this one next. And place this one. I think I put that one down in the wrong order, but anyway, we'll go with this one next. It's because I'm talking, I can't concentrate and talk at the same time. But we'll put this one here, making sure we leave enough here, because I know that I want to put a piece of that up there, so I know that I can leave that. And as you're planning, you can think about that kind of thing, or you can just do it serendipitously and, you know, leave bits hanging off, and then when you cut them off, you can see if you want to add them elsewhere on your card as well. And then we want to add this one on, and this one is going to sort of go over here, and then we've got this little one here, and then I think I'm going to raise up 3 of my pieces. So I'm going to raise up this one, and which other one did I do? I don't think I did the heart, did I? I did do the heart. I did the heart, this green one, and this one we're going to leave raised up with a little bit of 3D foam, so we can stick the rest of them down first. And this one over here, and then we can bring these 3 pieces back in. So we're going to put the heart down here so that the heart is over the pink area. Rather than showing 2 different colours through the heart, I thought it was nicer just seeing the pink through the heart. Then we're going to go with the flowery one over here, and then this one up the top there. So we can add a little bit of 3D foam to this. And you might also be wondering on this card, why did I put the heart at a wonky angle, like not in the centre, like I cut it in the centre? And actually that was because I wasn't paying attention when I was sticking the foam tape on, and I stuck it to the spotty side, not the opposite side, because they're double-sided. Sometimes you forget which side you're using, and so when I ripped the tape off, I ripped a little bit of the pattern paper, so I put the heart at a wonky angle there to hide that. But we can put this more towards the centre if we want to, although I quite liked it being off centre actually, so I think I probably will stick it back there. Then the next one that we're going to 3D up is this one here, so we can put a little bit of tape on there and 3D that up, and then we're also going to 3D up the heart as well. So just a little bit of foam tape on sort of 3 elements of that. You don't have to go super over the top when it's just sort of background elements, because it doesn't matter so much if they move around and get a little bit squashed or anything. So I think maybe there. I have a feeling a bit more of this might get cut off than we did on this card, but that's just the sort of nature of not being able to see the edge of your card. You don't really realise how close things are to the edge, which is why I always say trim all the bits off, you know, as you're sort of going. So we can put the heart die cut just there, like on the previous one, and now we've got all of those pieces stuck on, we can flip this over, trim off all of those excess bits that are hanging over the edges. And remember that we're going to save some of these, whether you're making, you know, whether you're laying them out exactly as I have on my card and you know exactly what pieces you want to save to use again, or whether you're just doing this you know, as you're crafting, you've got all of these extra pieces left over, so you can audition them wherever you want them. And I do think I want that pink back up in that corner again, but you can put them wherever you feel like. So if you more like wanted to have this blue plaid or the spot or something elsewhere on the card, you can do that yourself and just bring in a portion of one of those circles and add it somewhere else that you feel your background needs it as well. So that's kind of how I get the background to be how I want it to be. I just kind of keep those little bits that I've cut off and be like, oh, I think that needs a bit more balancing, or that corner looks too solid full of this pattern and I want to add another bit in, and stuff like that. So yeah, that's kind of how I sort of fill in the design. So we've got that like that, and then finally we're going to put our main focal element on here and our sentiments as well. Now for this one, because I wanted the background to be more muted to kind of show off that pattern, I put 3D foam on the back of this piece. so that it was raised up from the vellum, because if you add more distance between your element and the vellum, or the vellum and the background, it mutes the background more because you're leaving sort of more space between it. So that's why I decided to do that. Now, I'm not usually the kind of person who puts something right in the centre of the card. I usually go for the like a top third sort of portion, but with this one, because of the way the circles were lying, I felt like it needed to be slightly further down. So you can definitely play around with your focal element and placing it in different places as well. And then actually, I think I will stick this down onto the card with a little bit more 3D foam as well, just to give it a little bit more height too. So we're going to go like that, I think, in that kind of central section. Then for the sentiment on this one, instead of using the little banner that I used on the other two cards, I have just cut these out myself because I wanted 3 of them, and I thought 3 banners might be too much. Plus, the banner is longer than this sentiment, so I'd have had to have done some partial die cutting with it, and I didn't really fancy doing that 3 times and trying to get them all to look the same. So I've stamped my sentiment, and I'm literally just going to take my long bladed pair of Tonic shears and just cut along the top and bottom and then trim off the edges. I don't mind if things are slightly wonky, but if you do mind, you can definitely use your guillotine or paper trimmer. I'm just not that accurate with my paper trimmer. I'd much rather use scissors for this kind of thing, but I know everybody's different, so if you'd rather use a paper trimmer, definitely do that. And then for these, I wanted to also add them with some 3D foam as well. And actually, I didn't say this earlier, all of my sentiments or stamping that I've done on these cards, because these cards are pastel kind of colours, I used grey ink, not black ink. Usually I always stamp my sentiments in black ink because I feel like it sort of brings everything together and really draws your eye to that sentiment. But in this instance, I used grey ink because all of the colours are more pastel, and I thought the black would be too stark against all of these pastel colours. So if you're ever sort of thinking about what colour do I stamp my sentiment in, just look at the kind of tones of the colours that you're using. And sometimes if you're doing more of a vintagey kind of style, or maybe you've gone more steampunk with this and added a few cogs in, then brown is going to probably be your best bet for your sentiments, because it will tie in with more of that vintage kind of rusty sort of feel as well. So then we're literally just going to take the backing off, add our 3 sentiments just at wonky angles from each other. I think that looks quite nice. And then I did do a final extra step on this card. I took a white gel pen and I just added a few little faux stitches around here. I just felt like it needed something a little bit extra, so faux stitches is always like the extra little addition that I often add, or a scribbly border to something. But I felt like because this is all sort of sewing themed, I know this card isn't in particular sewing themed, it hasn't got a punny sewing sentiment on it, it just says let's celebrate, but we've kind of gone with a tatty frayed fabric sort of circle design. So I mostly just went for the 2 spotty ones, but I did also put a couple of stitches up there. But again, I'm putting the stitches not on everything, I'm putting them on these ones because this pattern is green on green. So the white is going to stand out more. If I did white on this one, you're not going to see it because most of the background is white. So that's why I've only done it on select spaces. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial video. Hopefully it's not too long. I don't really want these to go over half an hour, but I was doing 3 cards in this one, so I'll make an exception. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this tutorial of 3 different ways of using your pattern papers to create backgrounds for your cards. And this was using the special showcase from the Cyber Week celebrations for 2022, and this is the CRaFTi collection. And if you want to get hold of it, there will be affiliate links in the description box below the video. I think YouTube has kind of changed it. You will see underneath the video, sort of right underneath the title, there will be more with like a little ellipsis. You've got to press that, and then I think it also gives you a little bit of information, then says show more as well. So just keep pressing more or show more, and you should find all of the details underneath there. If you can't ever find anything in the description box below the video, I always do a coordinating blog post with picture links and stuff as well. And if you can't get to the description to find it, just Google Crafty Potential and you should find my blog really easily. If you're, really want to find the links to help support me by using those affiliate links as well. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again in the next video. Bye!